Sir, he's uploading the virus to the mothership. Welcome to Primary Technology, the show about the tech news that matters. Lots of news this week. Y2k came just 24 years late. iOS 18 public beta is out. New experiences for Apple Vision Pro. Apple TV Plus is cutting down some of their spending. Tesla earnings, and a ton more. This episode is brought to you by 1Password. You'll hear about them in a moment. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Robles, back from the Big Apple, not the tech company, came back from the city. And joining me, as always, my good friend, Jason Aiton. How's it going, Jason?
It's good. It's so good to see you, Stephen. I've been sitting here for 10 days now waiting for your face to pop up in Riverside, and it's good to do this again.
I'm really excited to podcast again. I missed doing it last week. And so thank you all the listeners and viewers for hanging on. But we got a fun show for you this time. And I have some New York City stories I want to talk about of the tech after the news. That'll be in like personal tech bonus stuff. And Jason, he made the entire world just crash. Every Windows computer crashed because Jason sent an update. I got the news right?
That's almost true. I mean, I did tell you that I'm terrible at reviewing Windows computers, and now you know why.
That is why. I thought did you know what movie quote I was referring to? What movie?
Not really. Something about uploading the virus. Is it Independence Day or something?
That's right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's it. I figured, CrowdStrike, Windows, uploading a virus. Felt apropos. We have a couple 5-star review shout-outs. This is Alan Keith Carver from the USA. And he's, over these weeks, we always tell people, leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and tell us if you have battery percentage on, tell us this or that. And he just has a list of things he told us in his review. And so he has battery percentage on. He says it's niche, not niche.
He's wrong.
He's giving us pronunciation tips as well. Hard G in GIF, which I agree. You say,
but you just said it wrong, didn't you? Isn't
GIF? Oh my goodness!
GIF.
What just happened? This is what happened.
You're like, I agree, but I just said it wrong.
No. GIF. Oh, I think that was the first time it ever came out. Yeah, GIF. That's what you say, right? GIF.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. Versus, not verse, which I don't know if we ever asked for that. But okay, thanks for that, Alan.
Also, those are just two different words. You can say them both, but they just mean two different things.
Right.
One is part of a song.
Or prose.
And the other one is part of a fight.
Yeah. Which we'll get to that maybe later. Talk about Mark Zuckerberg. But anyway, and then he said Snoopy watch face, which, listen, I'm down. If you want to leave us a 5-star rating and review, tell us what Apple watch face you use. Yeah, we could do that.
We did talk about that, though, a while ago. I told you I thought it was cool, and you're like, nobody uses that. Oh. And now we know that Alan Keith Carver does.
He uses it. There you go. And also, L.A. Greek, he has some very kind words to say in his review. He didn't say any of those other things, like battery percentage or whatever. He left us a dad joke.
Yes.
If you would like to leave a dad joke in a 5-star rating review, that's fine too. He said, I don't want to brag. I put a puzzle together in one day. The box said 2 to 4 years. It's a dad joke for you.
That's good. These are our people, Stephen.
It's our demographic is spot on. So last week I was in New York City, if you missed that a couple weeks ago. And so in our bonus episode today, for those who support the show directly, I want to talk about some of my experiences there from a tech perspective, like batteries. Like I have one of my MagSafe batteries that I used many times. You could see it has now taken a beating because it's been dropped on city streets and it has ridden the subway. And so we're going to talk about that and some other tech stuff. But I do want to say a couple things. Ben K., who is a listener and viewer of the show, he works at the Upper West Side Apple Store. And I tried so hard to get there while I was traversing Manhattan with my entire family, and I just couldn't get there. So I'm sorry I couldn't get there, Ben. I want to go up there and visit again sometime. And also Mark, a listener of the show for a long time, Fernando Silva. I know he's in New York too. I didn't get a chance to see everyone, but hopefully I can get up there soon. Maybe one day. Pipe dream, just meetups, primary tech meetups.
Let's do it.
I would love to do it. Maybe if Apple invites me to an event in New York.
I'll wander through the streets looking for a place to meet up. I've done it several times for this show.
That is true. You found random co-working spaces. Yeah. So that's the pipe dream. I'll have to do that. But thank you for those who reached out, and hopefully I can meet you in person one day. I did. I went to the Fifth Avenue Apple Store one day because of I had to show my family. Show the kids the glass cube and all that. Larger than I remember. It's a big store.
The store or the cube? Because the cube is smaller than I think most people think it would be.
Yes, the cube is smaller, but the actual store underground, I don't know if they've expanded it or whatever. I mean, the last time I was in it was, 15 years ago or so?
Oh, wow. It has been remodeled since then.
Right, and they have trees down there now, so it's very cool. And then I ran into another Apple store another listener recommended I visit it. Totally by accident. I was walking through Chelsea markets.
Just
or the
tripped
Chelsea.
and there was an Apple store there.
Well, almost. We were walking we were trying to find a Starbucks Reserve, which is like these special Starbucks stores. And there's a big one in New York City in Chelsea. And so we're walking down the streets, and I just see a little Apple thing sticking out from the building. I said, wait a minute, that's an Apple store. And so we go in, and it's the Chelsea Market store, which is like 3 stories. It has a spiral glass staircase. And there's a picture. Oh, I should have pulled it up. But there's a picture of my 12-year-old son at the Genius Bar talking up the Apple guy. He was asking how much per month he could pay for a new iPhone. He's like, how much does this cost a month? And he's like, we're trying to wheel and deal him.
So is this the West 14th Street one you're talking about?
Yeah, the Chelsea one. I think it's the West 14th Street. I don't know. I just know I was in Chelsea. Okay. So yes, 3 stories. I think it's only a 3-story one. Yeah.
Yep.
So, but that was fun. But hopefully, I can go up there and meet everyone again. One other tech moment I thought was interesting, and this is kind of apropos because the AirPods Max were on sale this week for like under $400, which I still don't know if that's
still not a good deal.
Still not a good deal. But going around New York City for an entire week, I saw many, many AirPods Max. I was surprised. Like on the subway, on the Metro North, walking the sidewalks. I was surprised to see so many AirPods Max. And I saw exactly one Sonos Ace. I saw one. It was in the Oculus Mall, which is like it's the like white ribbed building.
It's down at the World Trade Center.
Yes, by the World Trade Center. And I saw one guy wearing the Sonos Ace headphones, very nicely dressed. He had like this cool suit on. He was a cool New York guy. One Sonos Ace to like 100 AirPods Max, and I was surprised. I was surprised to see that many.
So you could have stopped by. That's right. That the it's like a mall and a subway station and a train station all in one. But that's right across the street from where Inc.'s offices are.
Oh, really?
7 World Trade. So yeah. But I do have 2 quick questions.
Yeah.
The first one.
By the way, I just want to show.
Oh, nice.
If you're watching, this is my family
cue.
by the Apple Cue.
There you go.
Yep. There it is. Yep. Okay. Go ahead. 2 questions.
Well, my first question was my first one is not a question. I think we should agree that no one should pay $400 for anything with a Lightning port.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think there's anything with a Lightning port that's worth $400. Maybe an iPhone SE, if you were if you're buying one for your kid. That's about it.
Okay. Yeah, but that's okay. You can get one for under $400 now.
Well, that's true. You shouldn't be paying $400 for an iPhone SE too.
Right. Exactly.
And then the second thing is hold up that MagSafe thing again, because I have ridden the subway a lot of times and I don't look like that. Like, what were you doing with that on the subway? Did you just throwing it at people?
I don't know what happened. So. Well, I'm going to save it for the bonus episode.
Okay,
you're goading me into talking about it now, but I used it a lot. I don't know. We did go to a skate park on the Lower East Side, and I was using this there, and I think I dropped it once. So I think that might have been
okay. I'm just curious because I have an actual Apple MagSafe battery, and it's always with me in my bag, and I've taken it across the ocean many times, and it does not look like that. So I just was curious.
Well, a little bit of a spoiler.
Okay.
A little bit of spoiler, but look, I brought that one too. Still pristine. But I use this one a lot. Anyway,
you just didn't throw it at anyone. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I didn't throw it. Yeah, this one's a little heavier. This is
it's a good self-defense tool. There you go.
Chuck it at somebody. Yeah. So anyway, listen, there was huge news in the week that we were gone. Massive news, and I think it's really important that we cover it.
I think you're right.
The HomePod Mini was announced in midnight color. Massive news.
Can you tell the difference between the midnight and the space gray one?
No, Jason. No, I can't. I have like 5 space gray HomePod Minis in my house, and I could swear this looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like the real news is not that it's midnight, because no one knows what that means, but it's like now made from 100% recycled materials or something like that.
Yeah,
and I'm wondering, I'm like, is that just like you just had a bunch of extra ones and you just recycled them into this one or something? I don't even know.
I don't know.
But is that the only one? See, I don't understand, because it's like, is that the only one that's, or are they all now 100% recycled material in the mesh? And if that's the case, is it sort of like we just want people to like have this as a status symbol that when people come over to see your HomePod Minis, you're like, oh, you bought the eco-friendly one? I don't understand this news.
I think it would be hilarious if Apple just repackaged the space gray but put midnight on the packaging.
That's exactly what's happening right now.
Exactly. But the fact that this had a whole press release in the newsroom, I mean, that's saying something. But anyway, Yeah, HomePod Mini available at midnight.
Yeah, they were really trying to compete against all of the other news that was happening in the last week or so.
It was. I did feel the vibes from that HomePod Mini announcement very much felt like the guy where he's like wearing the same shirt that he's holding up that he just got for Christmas.
Nice. Yeah.
That is this meme. This meme.
Yes.
Normally, this meme is reserved for the iPhone upgrade cycle, but I think the HomePod Mini one.
I mean, the HomePod Mini upgrade cycle is apparently not that much different than,
right,
some of the iPhones.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
Okay, so one of the big things that happened while I was out, the CrowdStrike failure. And so this was on a Friday. We were actually just leaving New York on that day, not flying, thankfully, because
no one was flying.
No one was flying that day, unless you were on Spirit, because they run on Abacus.
That's true. There are benefits to Stone Age technologies.
Exactly. But CrowdStrike, they pushed an upgrade to their service, which is on apparently millions of Windows machines specifically. And I've tried to ascertain exactly what CrowdStrike is. It runs on the kernel level of these systems, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, like monitors for malware, viruses, issues, things like that.
Yeah, so it's antivirus.
Right,
it's a cybersecurity tool, and the reason it runs in kernel space is so that it can see what everything else on the computer is doing. Because in theory, like that's the only way for something on your computer to tell if another application that's running on the computer is malware, is for it to be in the kernel space. And so, carry on.
So they pushed an update. I guess it was late Thursday night maybe, or very early Friday, like wee hours in the morning. And it took down 8.5 million Windows machines. It was blue screen of death on all these machines, including many machines that run Airlines. And I couldn't mobile order from Starbucks as we were driving back down from New York because CrowdStrike. Pushed this upgrade. So there was just many computer systems down. Mac users, we all had a moment. People were posting memes about how this didn't affect us, any Mac users. But it was a massive failure. It was, I think, what Y2k maybe would have felt like. I don't know. I don't know if you remember Y2k, Jason, but I felt like that was anticlimactic.
Steven, I'm older than you are. Yes, I remember Y2k.
I know. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
But Y2k, I remember we were all staying up waiting for the power to go off at least, and literally nothing happened. So.
At least he was hoping for a nuclear meltdown, but we didn't even get a power outage.
I was in high school and I was like, can something happen, please? I mean, I guess not. Well, so that was the CrowdStrike. There's a bunch of articles about it. I know it's about a week old, but you also had an article about the CEO's response, which I think is interesting. And so I don't know. Tell me about your take as you were covering this.
Yeah, let me back up just a tiny bit if you don't mind.
Yeah,
so just like for people, my guess is our audience, they don't care a whole lot because they're probably
Windows.
They're probably a little bit more leaning towards Mac, but it is important for a couple of reasons. One, Windows. Well, the irony here is no one who worked at Microsoft had this problem because they don't use CrowdStrike, right? CrowdStrike is enterprise level virus, antivirus, malware, whatever. Right. People who work at Microsoft, they don't use that because Microsoft actually has a lot of this stuff built in. And actually, Microsoft tried to eliminate the ability for third-party developers to what they call patch the kernel. They tried to get rid of that. And you know who told them they couldn't? The EU. Because it would be anti-competitive for Microsoft to shut off the ability for other developers. And when they were trying to do it, it was companies like CrowdStrike and McAfee who were like, this is anti-competitive for Microsoft to do this. But is there anyone in the world who is better equipped to protect Microsoft's kernel from malware attacks than the people who work at Microsoft? Probably not, right? And if it's possible to simply push one little button at a company called CrowdStrike and suddenly Delta Airlines has canceled 7,000 flights over the last couple of days, I feel like maybe we should just leave this one to the pros, right? But it's the EU. I just want to go on record like that there are people think like, yeah, I'm glad that these regulators are going after these big tech companies that have too much power. And I'm like, yep. And here's what happens sometimes when you decide to mess with this kind of thing. So I just felt like that was really interesting. But yeah, so they literally just pushed an update and it bricked a whole bunch of computers. And the reason I wrote about the response, now he has since sort of apologized. Well, he has since more apologized than he did when I wrote that article. At the beginning, he's literally like, we're sorry for the inconvenience. And I'm like, there's 6 million people sitting in airports on the East Coast right now waiting to go home because they can't get on an airplane. And at Delta, for example, the problem was that the computer systems that were most affected were their crew scheduling. So it's not like the planes couldn't fly. The planes are not running Windows, I promise you. Like, it's fine, right?
That would be an issue.
Right. That would be a totally different issue. Can you just imagine the pilots up there like, hang on, folks, I got to do Control-Alt-Delete real quick here. We got to reboot this thing while we're flying. It's like, it'll be fine. No, we do this all the time, 3 times a day.
It's a regular
usually.
process. Yes. The engines are going to shut off just for a few seconds. Don't worry about it.
But it just shows you sort of like the downstream effects to all these things. Now, yes, Macs and Linux. That's why like a lot of websites didn't go down because they all web servers run on Linux, right? Like, so it was fine. And Macs didn't go down. Now, the truth is, it is somewhat a vindication of Apple's strategy of trying to prevent third-party developers from having this kind of access. Like, that's on the iPhone, this could never happen, right? There is no such thing as antivirus software on an iPhone. It's just not a thing you could even try to you could try to sell it, and if you got it through App Store, that's great. You might make a little bit of money before they realize it's just a scam.
All those apps are scams.
Right, all of them. And they do exist, and they're all just scams. It's just, it's not even a thing. So, but the real reason that stuff like this doesn't happen on a Mac is that no one is looking for enterprise-level malware software on a Mac because no one is using Macs for enterprise things like this. Now that's not entirely true, but on the scale like this, it isn't. Like Delta Airlines is not running its crew scheduling on a bunch of MacBook Airs. That's just not what they're doing. So, but I just thought it was really interesting that the guy like took down the largest airline in the country with one keystroke, and the response was, "We're sorry for the inconvenience." And I don't know if this is true, Steve, and I've actually been trying to chase this down, but TechCrunch had a story. I'll send you this link just because it's actually hilarious. My editor sent this to me, and I thought there's no way that this can be true. That they were sending that CrowdStrike was now again. I have not verified whether this is true, so I'm just suggesting. What I am telling you is that TechCrunch published this article, not that the article is true, but the article says that CrowdStrike is sending a $10 apology gift card to say sorry for the outage. I don't really know if this is really true, but I just feel like you have missed the gravity of this. Actually, that was the thing. The post said, "We understand the gravity of the situation. We're sorry for the inconvenience." And if that's the sentence you write, you clearly do not understand the gravity of the situation. So.
Right. Yeah, and you mentioned before we started recording, one of the hilarious things is if you're watching youtube.com/@primarytechshow, this is the blue screen of death that Windows users see, that most of our audience probably has maybe never seen. No Windows logo on the blue screen, which is kind of hilarious. There's a big old emoticon, though, of a sad face.
It's a very sad face. But it's even there. It's meant to be like the least. It's like a passive aggressive sad face because it's literally just the period, open parenthesis, whatever.
Right.
There's no Microsoft logo on the blue screen of death. And the funny thing about that is the blue screen of death was everywhere for a weekend, and everybody knew. And Microsoft was getting all of the blame, and they had nothing to do. In fact, if it was up to them, they would have prevented this from happening. But again, thank you EU for your good work here.
I have to say that sad face emoticon, I feel like that's not a great choice for this screen. I don't know.
Is there a great choice for this screen? Did you know they tried to change this screen to black a couple of years ago, and they had to change it back because people were outraged?
Really?
Yeah, they weren't outraged that their computer kept crashing. They were just outraged that the thing that they see when their computer keeps crashing was no longer blue.
They should just have 2 words, just my bad. Just have my bad right there on the screen. Just leave it like
oops.
That. Yeah, oops.
I think the Twitter fail whale was better.
The Twitter there's actual affinity and nostalgia for the Twitter fail whale. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing that a lot. You saw that all the time back in the early days.
Especially when something would happen in the early days, like 2012, 2013, when something big would happen in the world. Twitter just couldn't handle it. I mean, it has always been a social network held together by wire and duct tape.
Chicken wire.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to package the Apple news here in a little segment because a little bit of news
I like
here
segments.
And there. Yeah, a little segment. Here's a segment. Apple Vision Pro. You're still using yours every day?
Every day. I have not used it yet today, but I will.
Oh, I see. Okay.
We record pretty early. I mean,
we record pretty early. Yeah. But I've seen on social media people are like, do people who's using the Apple Vision Pro? And well, I know one guy, Jason Aten. He's using it still
Every day.
every day. But Apple announced a bunch of new immersive experiences coming soon. There's one available now. And this is what gets me to put my Apple Vision Pro on my face is if there's a new immersive experience, I do want to see it. I want to experience it. So the one you can watch now is called Boundless, and it is from the Cappadocia, the hot air balloons, which is something that happens if you're not familiar in Cappadocia, Turkey. Every morning there's like hundreds, if not thousands, of hot air balloons that go up, and tourists do it and stuff. And so there's new immersive experience that covers that. It's really cool. I watched it. Did you watch it? Did you do the
I have not yet.
It's good.
Watched it.
It's good. The thing is, like, these are all like 6-minute videos. I think the parkour one was like 12 minutes. This one's 6 minutes. So it's very short. This one ends, I feel like, more abruptly than others. I was watching it, and then it was like the credits came up, and I was like, oh, okay. I guess
I thought you were going to say like the balloons crashed or something. Like
No.
Okay.
We're not talking about CrowdStrike anymore.
Okay, sorry. They're not running Windows on those hot air balloons?
There's no Windows on those hot air balloons. But it is amazing. Like those torches that they, I don't know if they're called torches, but the way they like manage those things, it's pretty wild. Anyway. Yeah. So that was available now, but then they announced a bunch of things coming later, like another episode of the Wildlife series, which you have the Rhino episode available now. There's other ones going to be coming in August. There's a new episode of something called Elevated, which is an aerial travel series. That comes in September, so we're like a couple months away from that. The one that I'm really interested in is this one called Submerged, which is actually a scripted short film. And this is going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, but the first kind of the drama, like a fictional story on the Apple Vision Pro in an immersive experience. Everything up till now has been very like documentary feeling, whether it's the High Line or the animals or the prehistoric world, and even the Boundless and parkour. Like everything's very documentary style, which is a kind of look or a kind of filming. You're looking at this, you're looking at that, and so to have an actual dramatic, like a drama, a fiction story on Apple Vision Pro in an immersive experience, I'm very curious of what that's going to look like. So that's coming, I think, this fall. I don't know if they even gave like a date. But then also the NBA All-Star Weekend. That's going to be interesting. I've not had my father-in-law try Apple Vision Pro yet because I've been waiting for a basketball thing because he's sports ball all day. And so I'm curious for him to actually try this and see what he thinks. But that's also coming. They just said this fall. That's coming this fall. And something from the weekend, not like the days of the week, the artist of the weekend.
What is your you said your father-in-law? Or your father? Your father-in-law? What does he think about the fact that, a third of the NBA games starting in 2025 are going to be on Amazon Prime Video?
I don't even know if he knows yet. I don't know if he knows. I'll have to see. He has Amazon Prime Video because
he has Amazon Prime, so everyone has Amazon Prime Video.
Yeah, I will probably get a text to be like, "Where do I watch the basketball game?" And then he'll probably have to tell him to go to Amazon.
Yep.
But yeah, so I mean, I think these immersive experiences are one of the really key features of Apple Vision Pro that actually like make it worth it. And I would love to see more. Like, we're going to talk about it in a second, how Apple is cutting their spending on some of their like entertainment budget, specifically Apple TV Plus content. I don't know if this fits into that. I would imagine it does, but I don't know. I think they need to do more of this. Like, crank it up, do more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. If you want people to use these, this is the one thing that they can offer on the Vision Pro that you can't experience anywhere else, right? Like, you can watch YouTube. Actually, you can watch YouTube better on your Apple TV, right? Like, you just can,
right? Yeah, for
right?
Sure. Yeah.
It's way better. It's a way better experience. You can watch Netflix way better other places because they didn't even bother to make an app for the Vision Pro. But even Disney Plus, it's really cool to sit in Avengers Tower.
Right.
But if I'm watching a movie, I just want to watch the movie. I'm not worried. Right. The problem with watching it in Avengers Tower is then you like get up and you realize that you're not actually in Avengers Tower and you trip over your cat or something. So
you don't even have a cat.
I do. I have a cat and a dog.
Oh, you do have a cat? Oh,
we have a one-eyed cat named Hermione.
You have a one-eyed cat?
There's a lot in that sentence, isn't there?
I can't even parse that right now.
We do. We have a one-eyed cat. She was a rescue cat. We got her very little, and one of her eyes didn't make it. And I remember when we asked the vet, like they were recommending, we need to do I think they call it an enucleation, which sounds terrifying, and it kind of is. Crazy. And I said, but that just seems so cruel. And I remember the vet saying she won't even know. I'm like, what do you mean she won't know? She's a cat. She won't even know she only has one eye. And it's true. She has no idea.
Okay. Wow. I'll be processing that later.
I'm sorry.
After I edit this episode.
That should have been bonus content.
There's also a new environment that's not only open to those in the beta, which if you're on the beta, you have like the Bora Bora beach environment that's available, but the Lake Vrangla, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it.
I mean, that's how you're going to pronounce it. And that's fine. It's good enough.
Thanks. That's which is in Oslo, Norway, or close to it. And so there's a new environment for everyone. This is if you're on Vision OS 1 or if you're running the beta and you can run this. Have you tried any of the new environments?
The Bora Bora. But I realize I don't actually want to do anything when I'm there except for just sit quietly because it's just very...
It is very nice.
It's very nice.
It's very nice and serene. So what do you, when you're doing your Vision Pro things, which is like, reading articles, whatever, are you in an environment? Are you
It depends. It depends on if I'm writing, I will often go into an environment so that I can like focus a little bit more. I like the Yosemite one. That's kind of fun. I do wish that the Yosemite was flipped. Like I would, because there's Half Dome and El Cap, right? And I think by default you're looking at Half Dome, and I think I'd rather be looking at El Cap. I might have said that backwards, but anyway, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like the.
Did you ever see the Free Solo movie?
Yes.
See, I just want, that's what I think about, and I just want to sit there and stare and be like, it's not real. He didn't do that. I can't believe it.
That film is incredible.
It is.
Alex Honnold.
Yeah, it is amazing.
Is the climber. And, you watch a Mission Impossible movie, it's pretty intense and it's fun to watch. You watch that movie and, like, the palm sweating is so real as you're watching Alex Honnold freestyle this thing, and, like, edge of your seat, it just, that's what happens.
Yeah, Steven, halfway through the movie, I had to Google, did he die? Is he still alive? In order to continue watching the rest of the movie. Seriously.
It is very intense. And also, he's a very interesting guy. I'll just say that. He's a very interesting guy. You have to just prepare yourself. But it's
amazing. Everyone should watch it, though. It is fantastic.
Free solo.
They did another one where they climbed something in Greenland, maybe? Or New Zealand. I know those are not the same place. I can't remember where it was, but they did another unbelievable climb. And I think was it Discovery Channel maybe that did the first one? I can't remember who. No, not Discovery Channel. National Geographic. Yeah, I think they're doing the same thing. The second one. But anyway, sorry.
Free solo. Highly
do not watch it in a Vision Pro though, because you'll just throw up.
Oh, but honestly, see something like that as an immersive experience. I don't know how you would carry one of those cameras on a drone. Although the Blackmagic one,
they had cameras everywhere, but also even the Highline is like too much to watch. Too much.
The Highline is intense. The Highline is intense. I will just in that Free Solo movie, the way the camera guy talks about like, how do I get this shot, but also not distract this guy as he's free soloing, so he fall like the pressure.
And also, how do I just know like they're doing all this work, and what happens if he doesn't make it? Like Imagine the trauma.
So
yeah. Anyway,
so crazy. But anyway, highly recommend Free Solo. Something else I want to recommend, which I want to tell you about our sponsor today. We have a sponsor, Jason, for this episode.
That's fantastic.
Which is amazing. And now, those who maybe follow my content for a while, you're wondering, well, why this sponsor? The sponsor is 1Password, which, I just want to say, I talk about iCloud passwords a lot, but 1Password, I still use it, especially in a team and enterprise environment. And one of the things that 1Password really excels at is that enterprise, business, and teams perspective. And so what we're talking about right now is 1Password Extended Access Management. So what this is imagine your company's security like the quad of a college campus, or maybe like a Central Park. There are nice brick paths between the buildings. Those are company-owned devices, IT-approved apps, managed employee identities. And then there are the paths people actually use, the shortcuts. Not iPhone shortcuts, like not shortcuts you shouldn't go down, worn through the grass that are the actual straightest line from point A to point B. Those are unmanaged devices, shadow IT apps, and non-employee identities like contractors. I've worked in places, and a lot of times people try to get around the systems because things are just faster or easier. Well, most security tools only work on those happy brick paths. I think it's apropos we talked about CrowdStrike today. But a lot of security problems take place on the shortcuts. Well, 1Password Extended Access Management is the first security solution that brings all these unmanaged devices, apps, and identities under your company's control. It ensures that every user credential is strong and protected, every device is known and healthy, and every app is visible. 1Password Extended Access Management solves the problems traditional IAM and MDM, that's mobile device managers, can't touch. It's security for the way we work today, and it's available now to companies with Okta and coming later this year to Google Workspace and Microsoft Entra. So If you work at a place or maybe you know someone who could really use 1Password's this tool, go to onepassword.com/product/XAM for extended access management. That's onepassword.com/product/XAM. That link is in the show notes. You could just click it there. Send the link to someone you know, maybe who runs the IT, or for a company that needs to protect those devices. Send them onepassword.com/product/XAM. Our thanks to 1Password for sponsoring this episode. There you go.
Yeah, and I was going to just look and see. I interviewed the CEO, Jeff Shiner, of 1Password. I was supposed to actually interview him on stage this summer, but I was not able to do that. But it was super interesting to listen to like how they think about this kind of thing. And they're very focused on, the idea that right now, I think they call it shadow IT, which is where basically everyone just gets their own. Like, I'm just using, and so that puts the companies at risk and stuff. And probably for our listeners, like the enterprise side is not as big of a deal, but like I use it personally, and it's great to have groups and shared groups where I can have somebody outside of our family even say, hey, you need access to these 3 things. Put them in a group, and now you only have access to those. It's really smart, and the people behind it, they know what they're doing and they actually care, which I think is an important, as we've seen, a very important thing when it comes to security. So yeah,
yes, exactly. So that's good. Yeah. So that link in the show notes. Thank you, 1Password, for sponsoring the show. Continuing with the Apple News segment, Apple TV Plus is trying to rein in some of the spending on their content after years of losses. This is interesting. I found this article interesting. This is from Bloomberg for several reasons. One, it talks about, I guess Eddie Q is the one that's having meetings with the Apple TV Plus studio chiefs, Zach Van Amberg and Jamie Ehrlich, to go over the budgets. And I just love this idea of like Eddie Q being this like kind of dad figure, being like, hey, we got to cut it out. Cut out the spending, all right? Like, relax. Yeah. And one of the pieces of data that came from this was that Severance, which is a very popular Apple TV show, I would say one of the biggest successes, apparently the episode had like $20 million budget per episode, which is one of the most of any TV show. I forgot where it is in this article, but like more than Game of Thrones budget, which I've seen Severance. I'm not exactly sure where the budget went. I mean, it looked cool.
I mean, putting in those implants in people's brains is really expensive. So isn't that like the premise of that show? Yeah. So
yeah, kind of. Yeah, that is the premise. Wait, did you watch it?
I have actually not seen Severance yet. Jason. Listen, I have 4 children, and Jason, I spend most of my time driving back and forth between gymnastics and soccer.
You're putting on that Apple Vision Pro every morning. Just throw.
I'm not watching Severance. I'm
just throw it up there.
I got to pay for soccer.
so yeah, that's why it ballooned to more than $20 million an episode, which is wild. So they're trying to cut back on some of the spending. I know I haven't seen it either, but did you see Napoleon or Killers of the Flower Moon?
No.
See, those were like the biggest movie productions from Apple TV Plus. I have not watched them yet. And
do you know what I watch? We watch sports, which I know you don't understand.
Sports ball.
And then we watch basically Marvel movies.
Right.
Because 4 children. Sure. And then, although last night we watched Sonic the Hedgehog.
That's a good one. I like
it's
that. It's
actually a great movie, to be honest. But
it's actually pretty good, yeah.
It's hard to admit that publicly, but it's actually a really good movie.
It is good.
I enjoy it. Or then my wife and I just watch Friends. That's it. And that's how we. Yep.
Have you guys watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
No.
It's a funny show.
We watched Ted Lasso and we watched Shrinking. But the criteria for a show that we watch before we fall asleep is I have to not have to think or have any emotions except for laughter.
Okay, fair enough. The one other part of this article I thought was interesting is there's kind of this presumption that like Netflix has won the streaming wars, and by basically like the budget or maybe the success of some of their originals and other items of information like the most Emmy nominations of any platform, if that's a metric you want to use. And I want to, I don't know, I feel like to take issue to say that Netflix is the streaming winner now, like to proclaim that now. I understand. I guess maybe it's the biggest, like subscriber count wise. Is that true? Is it the biggest?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you could make an argument that it's pretty close between them and Amazon Prime Video because everyone who has Prime has Prime Video. So like there is, every time people say like Netflix has the most subscribers, that's true for people who intended to pay money for streaming video. Right. Who but Amazon Prime Video has a pretty big audience as well. I'm not actually sure right now which one is bigger globally, but Netflix of the other streaming services is by far the biggest. And if you measure it by the share of people's disposable time, like the time that people could choose to do a thing with.
Right.
It's basically Netflix and YouTube.
Right. YouTube is still slightly above Netflix.
Just a little bit. Yep.
Just a little bit. So, I mean, in those metrics, yeah, I get it. But when it comes to actual content, I don't know. I still pay for Netflix because I haven't finished watching The Crown. And so once we finish that, I'm probably...
That is the most expensive show you've ever started watching. Well, if you're still paying for Netflix to finish it.
I'm very close to just buying the Blu-ray box sets.
We talked about this,
I know we talked about this. I know. But when I go in there sometimes because, there's not a ton of shows out there right now that I would be into. And so when I see the Netflix originals, I mean, it just seems like so many just kind of B movies that are just like kind of they're basically a content farm for like movies.
Sure.
Like here's an actress you've heard of, and we're going to put them in an action movie, and there's the thing. And like you have every flavor of that with different actresses, and like here's a spy version, here's a heist version, and it's like I don't know. I don't see them producing high quality content. Maybe I'm wrong. The Crown, but they're done with that. They stopped. That show's over. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, they have done some, right? That because wasn't the Queen's Gambit was also a Netflix show, wasn't it?
Yes, Queen's Gambit. Yes.
And so they've had certainly some. I think you could probably. I don't know if this is true because I haven't broken it down, but probably Netflix has just as many prestige shows as. In pure numbers as a service like Apple TV. It's just Netflix also has 700,000 other generic shows. It's all this is a terrible thing to say, but it is almost like the AI. It's like, what was it? The unofficial web blog where they just spit out a bunch of AI generated crap. Like it does seem sometimes like Netflix is like but that is an actual strategy for them. We just have to have something for you to always want to watch. So anytime you come to Netflix, you don't go anywhere else because we have something for you to watch. And so, I don't think you could argue that Netflix hasn't won. And even Netflix is basically like, we've already crushed everyone else and we aren't even going to try to crush YouTube. Like if you think your main competitor at this point is YouTube, you've basically won.
Okay.
Because you know how much money YouTube pays for content? Basically zero.
Basically zero.
Right? Yeah. It's just, I mean, they probably tell you, no, we share half of the ads.
Well, but
that's somebody else's money. That's someone else's money.
Can I tell you the amount of times I've had to Google the acronym UGC? I keep seeing that as like a phrase now, and I was like, what is that? Is that? But it's user-generated content. Yeah.
I guess that's, for someone who makes podcasts and YouTube videos, I'm a little surprised.
It's literally my job. I had no idea. I didn't know it was an acronym for it.
You're a UGC professional.
A UGC. I don't like that, though. It feels kind of... I don't know.
That does feel like a thing that is someone who works in like the business development or the like revenue generation side, like just they put everything as an acronym, right?
Right.
Like, it's kind of like, it's like in the airlines, the joke used to be SLC, self-loading cargo. Passengers are self-loading cargo.
That okay, yeah, that explains a lot. The airlines are talking about people like that. Okay, I see. Do you remember the thing back? This was, I don't know how many years ago, but like airlines entertaining the idea of like standing room in planes.
There's been some wild ideas because if your primary incentive is to maximize the amount of revenue you can generate, and that's like Alaska Airlines just is doing the opposite because they're actually adding first class and economy. It's like every other airline is trying to figure out a thing and just strap you to the walls on the side and just like there's just gonna be like a New York City subway. You're just gonna be holding onto a wrist strap on the plane. It's like
it's a wrist strap. You get a pole. There's a single pole down the center of this plane. That's it. Good luck trying to hold on. This just came out, I think yesterday as we record, but Apple Maps in beta on the web. You can now go to beta.maps.apple.com in your web browser. This works on desktop, on iPad, not on iPhone. It'll just say browser not supported. But you can go to the web and you have Apple Maps here. There's no login, so you can't like log in with your iCloud account and access the guides that you make or your favorite locations. Nothing like that. There are guides, but it's like the guides that Apple provides, these kind of curated guides for cities. You can get directions, and it can get your location from the web, obviously, and then you can search for businesses, and you can get the business information in places. So, like, I can click on this children's museum, and it has all the information that you would see on your iPhone. A lot of people are asking, like, what is the point? Especially because you can't log in. Google Maps benefit, like you can log into Google Maps, you can create guides or trips and do all this kind of stuff with Google Maps with your account. I imagine this would be coming one day. Not that Apple has announced it, but I imagine one day you'll be able to sign in and access your map data. But one, I guess Windows users can now access Apple Maps. But you also had a take as well. What? And you thought this was a threat to Google Maps.
Yeah.
Why?
Well,
how so?
Well, first of all, Apple Maps and Google have had this interesting relationship, right? Because Google Maps was one of the original
default
apps. It was the original app on one of the original 16 apps on the original iPhone. And then it was not until 2012-ish that Apple rolled out its own Apple Maps. And it is, for Apple, part of its commitment to privacy, because the reason that Google makes maps is because it can sell ads to small businesses who show up when you search for food or groceries or whatever. Right. And as you watch the evolution over time, listen, Google Maps is terrible. Is it on the phone? It is.
Listen, well, we're going to talk about that. I want to talk about the personal tech, Apple Maps v. Google Maps.
I'm just saying, open the thing. Yes. And when you take a look at it, when it first opens, you're just like, is there a map in there somewhere? Because all I can see is a whole bunch of things that are not a map, right? It is super bad. And they updated the overall design language sometime maybe last year, I think it was. I can't exactly remember. And it just got worse. Just the way the maps look is just terrible. So
no, I agree. And I'll just say, like, here's a live view. Oh, let me turn the brightness down. Here's a live view of Google Maps. And it's not my location, but it is a bit of a mess. I will be honest. Like, yeah, there's a map there, and I used this one time on our road trip for a very specific reason, and we'll get to that in the personal tech. But yeah, I agree. I think Google Maps has gone down in design.
Google's entire business model has been based on being the default choice for search, user-generated content, video, mail, right? Gmail is the largest email service that's ever existed, right?
Right.
And then also like maps, it's the default. And because it's the default, it captures enormous amounts of traffic. That's why they pay Apple $20 billion a year to be the default search engine in Safari, is because they can monetize that and make a lot more money off of that. I mean, so for people to right now, if you're just sitting at your desk and you click on a link from a website, it's going to open in Google Maps, right? That's just the only option. So now Apple is trying to, the number of people who are going to just go to beta.maps.apple.com are probably pretty small. It's like you and me and a couple of our listeners. Right. But once developers start incorporating that kind of technology into websites and that sort of thing, now suddenly you have broken the default a little bit. And it actually is a much better product. And Apple can leverage the fact that there's over, 2 billion of their devices in the world, and now everyone else on Windows. Although I did think it was interesting that Chrome on Android is not included on that list.
Yeah, interesting.
So, I don't know if that's coming, but I think it was a super smart move. It doesn't seem like a big deal because people are like, how often do you just sit and use maps on your phone? But I do think it would be nice if you could click on a link, like an address link on a website. It opens in the Maps app it opens in Maps on your browser, and then you could just send it to your phone. That would be nice.
Right. And there's actually an extension called Mapper. I talked about this in one of my videos, where it basically takes the Google Maps directions links that you would find in like Google search results and just opens that in Apple Maps.
Yeah.
It works pretty well on iOS. On the desktop, it's maybe not as consistent. But there's, full extensions on that. And like what Jason is saying, that could slowly change. Now, I don't think you'll ever see a Maps destination link in a Google search. Like Google's not going to allow that. Right. But if you go to a business's website, for a long time it was like, well, let me put the Google Maps directions link because that's the most universal. Like anybody from any device can access it.
Right.
But yeah, if one day that can also be like, here's the Apple Maps link, and anybody on any device can also use that. Yeah, that would be pretty powerful.
Yep.
So yeah, that's cool. So there it is. You can try it out. And that's all the Apple stuff. Let me see. Any other Apple stuff? We got that. We got Maps. We'll talk about Apple Maps versus Google Maps in a second. Real quick, I just want to throw this out. This is not really news, but do you think, because we're both on Threads, in the last couple of weeks, there's been some big events, namely the CrowdStrike and those massive outages, Biden stepping down from the 2024 election. When it comes to current event and news, Threads as a social net. Okay, that's too early to say social
network.
Social.
It is a so-so network. You're right. It's so-so.
It's so-so. But I think it is improving on that real-time news. Not that it's great yet, but when those big events were happening, I could actually go on Threads and see posts related to it while it's happening. And there's been this ongoing joke about like someone, I forget who it is, maybe it's Dan Seifert, previously of The Verge. He posts like the Daniel Craig gif of like, ladies and gentlemen, the weekend. And it's like, let me know what day you see this. And most of the time I would see it like Sunday night. And he posted it Friday. But that's actually been getting better. Like actually, as the joke continues, I see that earlier and earlier, sometimes even on Friday. And so I do think Threads has tweaked the algorithm, which admittedly they don't want it to be a news source, but I do think they are allowing the algorithm to surface like what is happening, what are people talking about right now, and we're going to put these posts in people's feeds. Not that it's great, but I think it's getting better. What do you think?
Well, maybe. I mean, the other, enormous, probably largest news story of our lifetime that happened while we were not podcasting, because it's not tech related, was the attempted assassination of former President Trump. And you couldn't find anything on Threads, like in terms of real time. But if you went to X, like that was the moment that it became very clear that for the people for whom real-time transmission of information is an important part of either their job or just what they're curious about in life, that X is still the platform for that. Not because the way that they have decided to do whatever is great, but because the fact that like it allows for just literally chronological surfacing of information that people care about. And X seems to default more towards, we want to show you the things that we think everyone wants to see because that spurs engagement, versus we want to show you a carefully manicured version. Because honestly, listen, I like Threads and I use it, and it's really weird to me sometimes when I'll post something and it's like, why did that get 25,000 views? Like, I don't really understand what it is that happened that made that be the post that people really cared about.
And why am I getting a notification about it?
Yeah. 25,000 times. Yeah. Or why do I get a notification every time Kara Swisher starts a thread? I don't understand. Why can I not turn that off? I mean, I like Kara Swisher, but honestly, I get a notification every time she posts a thread. Like, why? Why do you think that that's the thing that I want to see? Like, whatever. Yeah. But most of what you see in there is just like random, just engagement bait garbage in Threads. And they have to, like, I don't want to see that. Yes, I know that there's a following feed. That's fine.
Yeah, but it's not.
Yeah. So
until you can set that as the default, I don't think that's a good.
They just have to decide who they're going to be, who they want to be when they grow up. And did you see listen, I'm sorry, but did you see the post from Zuck the other day? This is a response that Zuck posted about how when he was 19, he didn't know anything about running a company and how awkward he was, right? And stuff like that. Zuck has decided that he's going to be an MMA fighter when he grows up. The question is, who does Threads want to be when it grows up?
And I also will say, I don't go on Facebook very often, and I do it sometimes. I was trying to sell something on like Facebook Marketplace, which is kind of like the one reason why I still go there to open the app. I will scroll my newsfeed for a second, and people that I know personally, typically they are not older, but older than me, and I will see them engaged with AI-generated imagery, whether it is just a meme or whatever. But I've seen more and more like products where people will say like, where can I find this? Or, what is this? Asking about an image that they believe is real. And I could tell it is clearly AI generated.
Right.
And it is honestly troubling because, I think maybe a lot of people who probably listen to this show and us are usually discerning enough to see AI-generated content at a distance. That may get more difficult in the coming years. But right now, there's AI-generated imagery that is basically fooling people into thinking things are real. And like one of them was so silly. It was a post from a company, and it was like an inflatable pool, but the entire edge was like a bench. So basically, like you could sit around this big oval as a bench with but it was clearly an AI-generated image. And there were people in the comments that I know, and someone reposted it being like, oh, this is such a cool idea. And I'm like, this doesn't exist. Like, this is not a real thing. And, maybe some company will make that now. But the fact that there is not that realization from a lot of people about what is AI generated and what is not, That I find troubling. And Facebook is a meta platform, so
Yeah.
you're controlling that algorithm too. And I hope that doesn't come to Threads, but I don't know. It's a weird time. Yeah, that's what
It's
I'm
a
saying.
weird time. Yes.
It's a weird time.
Well, I mean, but it's not surprising that people believe things that are not true. It's just surprising how easy it is to share things that are not real to get people to believe them. Like that barrier to, that friction point is now gone.
Yes. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not going to go down that terrible rabbit hole. But you're talking to me about something else that's going downhill, which is the Tesla shares. Don't leave us a 1-star review. We're just reporting the news, okay? Tesla shares are down. Tell me what happened, Jason.
Well, basically, the most important piece of news here is that Tesla reported its earnings recently, right?
Yes.
And its revenue declined from a year ago, and it was, and also its profit margins went down. And this was the first. There was times in the past where those numbers went down, mostly during the beginning of like the pandemic and stuff. But this is the first time that they have gone down 2 quarters in a row, right? That its revenue. It doesn't mean that its revenue growth went down. Like that's what usually like people stock prices go down because it's like we thought your revenue was going to grow 17%, but it only grew 15%, and that's like a catastrophe. It's like it still grew.
It's still
15%, but in this case, Tesla's revenue is actually going down. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's a lot more competition in the EV market. And Tesla is still the largest EV maker that there is. And I still drive one. So just keep that in mind when you go to leave us a review. I love my Model S. It's fantastic. It's a 2018. It does not have full self-driving because none of them have full self-driving because it's not a real thing. Just talk about things people believe that are not actually true. But
that's what's going to get us a 1-star review. You got to listen.
Don't leave
to
a 1-star review.
episode.
Just send me hate mail. But I do love I love my Model S. It's the best car I've ever driven. But the thing is, most people aren't going to. There are a lot of other options right now that are great. Tesla still has by far the best charging network. That's its best asset, right? It really does. And they're opening that up to other EV makers, and that's a good thing, I think, for everybody. It's slightly less good thing for Tesla drivers because it might be a little harder to get a charging spot, whatever. But they continue to deploy them, whatever. It's just, I think that there is a underestimation of the impact that some people have It's like, Netflix, they started charging you for password sharing because everyone who was willing to pay for a Netflix account had already signed up for Netflix. So they had to find some way to get more people to sign up because that's how companies are measured by growth. Right. There are a lot of people who will buy a Tesla just because they love Elon Musk. Okay. Right. That's a true thing. There are also a lot of people who bought Teslas because they were the first good electric vehicle. They really were, right? They're sure they had some quality control problems, whatever. They've saturated those two markets. And the market of people who bought them just because they were the only option, now you have a lot of other options, right? Rivian makes great vehicles. The Hyundai Ioniq is a fantastic vehicle. The Ford Mach-E, all of these are very good electric vehicles. The Kia EV9, if you're looking for an SUV instead of like the Model X or whatever, like all of these are fantastic vehicles. And so there's a lot of competition there. And there's a lot of people who are now like, I think I want an electric car. I just don't want one sold by Elon Musk. And that's a hard thing. And I don't think, the worst look here is shareholders approved a $45 billion pay package for Elon Musk. And then the revenue is going down 2 quarters in a row. I feel like that's not a good sign. I don't know.
Well, and then also he's over here on X, namely Musk, saying, should Tesla invest $5 billion in XAI?
Yeah.
Which
is his AI company.
Right.
It's like, wait, you had $44 billion to invest in X. You can't come up with $5 billion to invest in this other company? Like, are you tapped out, bud?
Yeah, that's true.
They just gave you 40. They're just trying to give you a truck full. They think about the number of Cybertrucks they're going to need to shovel out that cash that they just approved as a pay package. But the Cybertruck is a great example, Stephen, because for people who drive one, they love the Cybertruck.
They love it. Yeah.
It is actually a fantastic thing. Like if you're driving it, I mean, it does feel like you're probably going to kill somebody. But it is, but people are like, I would never buy that thing just because of how excited the guy that runs the company is about it.
Right, which it's tough. I mean, it's just real life. I will say, yeah, I've met a couple.
But there's nobody who's like, I'm not buying a GMC Silverado because Mary Barra once cut me off in traffic.
Again, it's just the age we live in where these are personality driven companies,
Yeah.
like Mark Zuckerberg, like Threads, Facebook, Meta, and now Mosseri, who's over Instagram, is kind of like the face of Threads
Because it's part of Instagram. Yeah.
It's part of Instagram, so everyone's just mentioning him with like their feature requests and complaints. It's interesting that it's personality driven companies where I don't know. I mean, I feel like Apple was very much a personality driven company. I don't know if it still is now. I mean, I don't think people don't. I think us in the Apple sphere. See, I'm literally wearing my "Let Tim Cook" shirt today. And so, but outside of that, like I do think average non-techie people have this idea of like Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, and even though he's not the CEO anymore, Jeff Bezos and Amazon, and like there is this like correlation, and I don't know if Apple has that anymore, and that might be a good thing that it's not as personality driven, because then if the person leaves or whatever, it doesn't affect everybody's idea of it. But I don't know. Do you think Apple is personality driven, like connected like that, like Tesla and Meta and all that?
I don't know. I mean, no, I don't think that it is. It is. I think Steve Jobs was the ultimate example of a company who was reflected in its CEO, founder, whatever, right? Tim Cook is not the founder of Apple, right? He is the CEO, but all of the other people you mentioned were founders. Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, right? Those are people who started those companies. Yeah, Elon Musk. And so I think there's a much different relationship between what people think about the company and what they think about the founder. I just don't think that that's true. I think that certainly Tim Cook has absolutely left his fingerprint on it, and Apple is 7 times bigger than it ever was before Tim Cook. Like it's just ridiculous. So like clearly it's Tim Cook's company, but I don't think people associate the design of the new iPhone with Tim Cook's taste.
Right, absolutely. The one non-founder connection, I don't know how widespread this is, but I do think Bob Iger and Disney have become kind of a little closer to that founder company relationship than not. I don't know if it's because it was like, he left and Bob Chapek and everybody was like, oh, wow, Disney's not great. And then Bob Iger comes back and he very much put himself out there, like in the interview he did in front of the mountains or whatever. He's like, he very much puts himself out there as like spearheading Disney. So I don't know.
Yeah, but Disney is such a huge monster. So, I mean, you could argue like, okay, Delta CEO Ed Bastian like is the public face of that company, right? But no one thinks like Delta Airlines. Airlines are different because they've been around for quite a while, right? And they were all founded by different people.
But no one's. But also, like, it's not a daily. For most people, it's not a daily life, daily interaction thing. Like social networks, people interact with every day. Your devices, people interact with every day.
Sure.
I think there's a different there with like
people interact with Disney every day and have no idea that it's Disney, right? Like it's not because I mean, if you watch the NBA Finals, you're watching it on ESPN, and that's Disney.
Well, I don't. I don't watch the.
Okay, bad example.
No. Well, speaking of which, last news bit before our maps thing, you put this in there.
I just gave you the perfect transition.
Yeah, perfect transition, but I don't know nothing about sports ball, so you tell me about it. I don't know
Well,
anything about sports ball.
I was going to write about this, but I ran out of time because I wrote about the Apple Maps thing that no one cares about instead. No, I'm just kidding. Which was the big story, the last big TV rights deal that was up for grabs was the NBA's deal, right? The NFL signed theirs, most of the college, whatever, all signed them in the NCAA tournament. All those things have been basically wrapped up. This was the last big one. The funny thing is I actually asked ChatGPT, what is the next big TV rights deal for sports up? And it's like the NHL. And I'm like, nope, you failed. That's not, no one cares. I mean, I like hockey. Don't get me wrong. We're big Red Wings fans at our house, but like, no one cares. It's not the same thing as a $77 billion deal. But the headline feature here is like for 44 years, the NBA has been on TNT, and now it's not. They're putting games on Amazon instead, right? And NBC, they gave a bunch of games to NBC, which is I don't think had NBA games for quite a while. ESPN still keeps the finals and a whole bunch of games, but Amazon is going to get a whole suite package of games, including like a new in-season tournament that they're going to do, the NBA Cup, and then a bunch of like Black Friday game and a bunch of Thursday night games after the football season's over and stuff. And so what this is basically, the NBA got their money. This is probably the last big TV deal ever, right? Because linear TV is going away. So I can't imagine that in 11 years, any sports league is going to be making deals with NBC, right?
Peacock.
I mean, there's some of these games will be on Peacock, but think about like if you pay for NBC and you hear the NBA is on there, you get real mad when you find out like actually it's on Peacock. But anyway,
Right.
Speaking of, by the way, did you notice, Stephen, that the Peacock logo on Apple TV has the Olympic rings?
Oh, does it?
I have got to write about that. That is the smartest thing. That when you are looking at the Apple TV grid, you know exactly where to go for the Olympics.
I have to actually sign up for Peacock today, probably, because I do want to watch the
You're
Olympics.
welcome.
It's the
Just
only
look for the one with the Olympic rings. But think about that branding. That is the most powerful. That is like the single most powerful branding that any media company could have. Are those 5 Olympic rings on there?
But can I also just for 1 second, because the Olympics, the opening ceremony is tomorrow as we record, Friday, July 26th, happening in Paris, France. Last time, I think 100 years ago. Well, we just watched this
100 years ago. Last time was not 100 years ago. It was only 3 years.
But in Paris. Last time it
Yes.
was Paris?
Yeah.
because we watched the Young Lady in the Sea movie on Disney Plus, which is Daisy Ridley, the true story of Ederle swimming, the first woman to swim the English Channel. Movie was great, but she also competed in the Olympics that were in France in 1924, which is pretty wild.
Which is also the first Olympics that women were allowed to compete.
Right,
in
exactly.
Paris. Yep.
So a good movie. Side note, but also, I was trying to find information about the opening ceremonies for the Olympics because I do like to watch them, and so I search, as you do, which is a Google search, like Olympic opening ceremonies. And so it sends me to the Olympics official website. It's like, okay, cool. And so I'm scrolling around. I'm like, I just want, like, what time, where do I watch? That's the information. This is why there's 1,000 articles with that as the title. But I'm on the website and it says, oh, well, download the official Olympics app. Like, okay, cool. So I download the app and I go to the app and it's basically just a bunch of web views of the same website I was just on. And it's like, well, you can stream it on Peacock. And so here's a link to that. It's like, okay. So I tap that and it sends me to Peacock. And I'm scrolling around, still just trying to find the information. Like, if I want to give you money and watch the opening ceremonies. And I see another thing like, well, you can watch this in the NBC Sports app. And Jason, I was so like fists in the air. Like, why is this so hard? It's like, you have an official Olympics app. I understand it's Peacock and the Olympics are different, but like, can we just, I don't know.
I know it is
so
ridiculous.
hard.
It is just ridiculous. And honestly, I feel like there should be a law. Maybe the EU can get on that for us. Except for the Olympics are in France. They're like, this is great.
Right, you do that thing. Anyway, I'm trying to figure out. So for our personal text, I want to talk about iOS 18. I feel like I need to spend more time with it to have more thoughts, like the photos thing. Because you don't have it on a main device, do you? Are you running the iOS 18?
No, I have it on a second device.
Right. The one that's not even yours, right?
It's not. Shh.
So sorry. Right. So I don't know. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. But I want to talk about Apple Maps versus Google Maps here in personal tech, and then I want to talk about my New York City trip in the bonus episode. But Apple Maps versus Google Maps. From what I've heard from you, I assume you are an Apple Maps by default user.
100% of the time, unless we're using Waze. That's it. That's the only exception.
Waze
is great for road trips because it's actually a very good road trip.
Which isn't Waze is owned by Google.
Yeah.
Bought it. So
But it's
anyway,
not Google Maps. It's a different thing.
It is a different thing. I don't use Waze. Every time I talk about maps, I know everyone's like,
all
oh, Waze.
hardcore road trippers use Waze.
Okay. Well, I don't use Waze.
I mean, Stephen only leaves his house once a year, so it's fine.
I don't want another maps app. But I was traversing New York City, and I, here in Florida, don't usually have reason to use transit directions. And the last time I was in New York, because I grew up in New York, I am literally from New York, I knew how to read a subway map. I knew how to get on the L and the R and all that, and I knew what I was doing.
The L's in Chicago, isn't it? I'm sorry.
Well,
carry on.
I don't even know.
I mean, it's true. It is. The L is the subway system in Chicago because it's elevated.
Anyway, okay. Well, I knew all the other trains, and but this time I was like, forget the map. I mean, let me try Apple Maps transit directions, and I just have to say, Jason, spot on.
Absolutely.
Transit directions in Apple Maps was so good. It gets my current location. We were in Manhattan. I was like, how do I get to whatever? And it just tells me what train to get on and all that. I have some other thoughts about Apple Pay and the subway, which I'll save for the bonus episode. But Apple Maps was great in that transit area. We used Apple Maps. We drove. We drove from Florida to New York because we're a family of 5, and my kids don't understand the compact nature of needing to fly and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's complicated. So we drove, did a big road trip, and we used Apple Maps pretty much the entire way. Although I will still say there are times when there is traffic on the road, and this was happening as we were coming back, entering Florida in the car. Apple Maps wanted me to take 95 south. And there was some traffic. Like Apple Maps was showing me the traffic. And Apple Maps, I think, traffic-wise, all the credit. Because all the traffic, the red, the orange, like the yellow, it was accurate the whole trip. But Apple Maps just refused to give me an alternate route that didn't take 95 that I knew would be faster. And it literally gave me this route when we left Florida going to New York. And I was like, why won't it let me do this? And for me to do it, I had to do the weird, like, let me drop a pin and add that as a stop so Apple Maps, like, reroutes the other way. And it just would not give me that alternate method. Whereas I did jump over to Google Maps for this one instance, and Google Maps did say, here's an alternate route, and it is faster, and that was accurate. So aside from that one instance, which I don't know why Apple Maps sometimes just refuses to route you around traffic.
How much faster was it?
I mean, it would have been like 45 minutes to an hour faster because it was avoiding 95 completely, and it was taking like kind of these couple back roads down to where we live. And so it was significantly different, and we took that alternate route, and it turned out it was faster. So that was like the one instance. Sometimes Apple Maps just refuses to give you that alternate route. But all the other times, adding a stop on a route, Apple Maps wins. It's so easy. It's so good. The transit directions were so good. And the design, like, I think the design's great. I also set up a guide, which you can do that. If you've never done it, I encourage you to try it. Set up a custom guide to different places in New York City. And, I have it right here on my phone. You got all the little pins, all the locations, and then you got all the different places we were trying to visit. And, I love the guides in Apple Maps. Just 2 thumbs up. Apple Maps.
Yeah. And if you connect your phone to your car using Bluetooth, it'll remember where it is.
That too. You get the parked car notification. I find I did a video on this like over a year ago, and I think people were starting to like tip over to the Apple Maps side because Google Maps just had so much like mind space and people
inertia.
Yeah, there was so much inertia. But I think it's actually shifted. I think a lot of people are like, hey, Apple Maps, it looks great. It's just way better, and it actually takes you where you need to go. It's not trying to get you to drive off a bridge anymore.
Which is an important thing. And I will say, Steven, so the first time I realized that Apple Maps was garbage, when it was actually in your neighborhood. Not your neighborhood, but we were in Tampa over Thanksgiving one year, and we were going to pick up food. Because when you're traveling with a whole bunch of family, like you can't, like we can't make a Thanksgiving dinner in a hotel or whatever. But we were going to pick something up, and Apple Maps gave us directions to where that was. And it literally took us to like a dead end road that was 3 or 4 miles away from wherever it was that we were going. And we're like, yep. And then we didn't use it again for like 3 or 4 years because it was like, I can't, you have one job. And if you can't do that job, I don't care how pretty you are. I don't care how nice you talk to me. You have one job. I will put up with all the other inconveniences if I know it's like a trust thing.
Right.
And it's the thing that's built up over long. So I imagine there are some people who had a bad experience early on, but I will say, they have gotten so much better, and in my mind, it is a lot better than Google Maps. Yeah. You talked about the transit directions. My favorite thing about that is that when you come up out of the subway, it'll look around and it'll like see the building, so it can actually tell you. Because you come up out of a subway, and there's 4 options,
exactly.
And it's like you look at the thing and you're like, oh, I think I want to be in the southwest corner, but the grid is not north and south in Manhattan. It's actually at an angle, so you're like, actually, I was supposed like it can be confusing, but you just can hold the phone up and it sees the buildings and it knows, oh yeah, you got to go that way.
And the transit directions even tell you like, here's the entrance to the subway that you have to walk to, and then this is like the walk to the train. Like it gives you that granular detail. It's great.
Yep, it's fantastic. I think it's really good. I still think that Street View is better than Look Around. So Street View on Google Maps because they just have had more time like driving those weird cars with the thing on the top of them around. Like it's true. Like there's Street View of like random mountains and like
I know
weird places. It's amazing. There's no streets, but there's a Street View. So, but Apple Maps, give it a try if you're listening. Like if you're one of our listeners and you're still using Google Maps, like that's fine. there's a better experience out there.
It's good. Apple Maps is good.
And especially if you're in a place like New York,
Right.
or if you're like in the Bay Area, and they have those enhanced views. So you don't even have to go to like the satellite view, but they will show you the enhanced views, like the 3-dimensional, like just look up Apple Park on there, and you can like see the ring. Right. And it's like very, very cool. So
it is very cool. I will say we were doing turn by turn as we were driving, and sometimes if you approach a big city that has this, you get that enhanced view where it's like not just lane assist, but it gives you that 3D view of like, here are the lanes. It'll do like fake trees. Like you can see these like trees on the sides.
Yep.
But it didn't, for some reason, it didn't do it in some places really close to the city where I assumed it would. But it did it every time we were on like the Jersey Turnpike as we were going up and going down. It was like, we actually need 0 lane assist right now because we're just on this the entire way through Jersey. But okay, I appreciate the little 3D trees on either side. Yeah, it looks very nice. But Apple Maps, yeah, especially transit, it's really good. I'm going to do some shortcuts. In a future video, I'm going to do some shortcuts for Apple Maps transit directions. It's going to be pretty fun.
It's wild.
Anyway, I want to talk more about my trip in the bonus episode we're about to record. So if you want to listen to the bonus episode and get access to all the past bonus episodes, you should go to primarytech.fm, click bonus episodes. You can support the show there. You get an ad-free version, and we actually had an ad today, so you can get an ad-free version and the bonus episodes. You can do it there, or you can support us directly in Apple Podcasts. You can get the bonus episodes and ad-free versions there as well. Or you can just support us by leaving a 5-star rating and review in Apple Podcasts. You can watch the show, lots of fun things to see at youtube.com/@primarytechshow. That link is in the show notes as well. And links to everything we talked about is down in the show notes too. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.